Welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, we're going to talk about Russian trolls, Russian bot farms, social media, the whole thing, right? How much is it influencing us? How much does it, shape the world? What is Russia actually trying to do? What are their goals? All that stuff. You hear a lot of stuff, but you wonder, does it really matter? I don't know. Russia has all these different groups they created, and how much does that really influence us? Does it really have an effect? Kevin, basically, what is Russia even doing? What's happening?
Well, Comrade Chuck, they're doing all sorts of
it.
nasty shit.
The nasty shit.
The Internet Research Agency is like the Russian propaganda wing there.
Right.
Now, technically, the Internet Research Agency is a business. It's private. It's not related to Russia in any way. It's in St. Petersburg. But turns out that's really bullshit, and it's kind of easy to see through it. The guy that owns it is Yevgeny Prigozhin. He's the owner of the Internet Research Agency, and him and Putin are super close buddies, like riding horses without shirts together and shit. Super into each other. Now, there's a woman named Jessica Arrow. She was a Finnish journalist, or she still is a Finnish journalist. They haven't killed her yet. And when they were gearing up to invade Ukraine, you remember that 2014 when they seized their ports and all that sort of shit? She was doing research into all this weird propaganda shit that was coming out on the internet. And she tracked it back down to this building in Russia, in St. Petersburg, called the Internet Research Agency. And like I said, technically it was a private business, but she was across the street recording the front of the business who was coming and going. And the dumbass security guard came out and yelled at her and told her she couldn't record it because it was a government building. So you got to get your shit straight. You can't have the best of both worlds and be a government, have the protection of a government agency, but also be unrelated to the government and act like Russia isn't, the nation of Russia isn't actually involved in all this bullshit. I mean, it's pretty see-through. It's pretty obvious. I know there's a lot of bullshit about how they're not related, but they are 100% related. And it's all the same motherfuckers, and they're all getting paid by the Russian government, and it's not a private business. So let's just clear that off the table right up front.
All right.
Now, Jessica Arrow, she was after she put out a book on all this stuff, and afterwards she started getting all these death threats, and it turns out it wasn't the people from the Internet Research Agency that were doing it. Instead,
is it Hillary's campaign?
No. Instead, what they did was they put all this bullshit on the internet about her, all this made up bullshit, and basically accused her of doing what they were actually doing. And she's getting death threats from everybody that believes that she's an asshole, even though she had nothing to do with any of the stuff they're accusing her.
That's pretty smart.
It is smart. And honestly, you might see me after we do this show putting out on my Facebook and shit about how I'm all pro, I don't fucking know. Pro Russia. Well, I don't know. I don't know how they would. I mean, I'm already an asshole, so I don't know how they'd paint me as more of an asshole. But I don't post on the internet. So if you see a post from me on the internet, it's probably the Russians.
It's the bots.
It's the bots.
Now, so have I even seen this Russian influence in my social media? Is it in my feed? If I go scroll on there and I'm searching through the Prepping Badass page, what am I going to find? Is there Russian influence reaching out and touching me?
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think that all the best political memes you see out there were created by
a Russian,
whether it's right wing or left wing.
Right.
All the best.
I did see
are
they
the
had
Russians?
some sample ones on
Okay.
the website, that were pretty popular.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one with a big picture of Satan,
Uh-huh.
and it had Satan, what is it, like a colon with the two dots?
Uh-huh.
And it said, if Clinton wins, I win. And then on the bottom, help Jesus.
And that was a Russian one?
And I was like, that was a Russian one.
That's
And
classic.
I was like, I like it. So, so if you saw that, then maybe Russia touched you a little bit. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Um, the thing is, like, so it's not necessarily, people are like, oh, well, you know what? Russia's going to make me subtly think that, America's bad or whatever. Or, people always say, like, they stir the pot with the guns and the whatever. But here's the thing, the goal of a foreign government, typically with what we see, now there are certain agendas they might want to push,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But typically, it's to stir the pot.
Mm-hmm.
They want to create hate and discontent. It's
Right.
not that they care so much pro Second Amendment, anti Second Amendment, pro Clinton, pro Trump, whatever. That's not the point. The point is to make you divided,
Right. To
to
piss you
like
off.
stir the pot, to get you all, worked up, and to distrust your government, to hate your government, to realize that the other side is the problem. And it basically feeds that agitation. And that seems to be the goal that they're trying to do, which I got to say is kind of more brilliant. I mean, I think if, instead of targeting certain issues, basically tearing a country apart from the inside where they just kind of hate each other and don't trust each other,
Right.
or you completely don't trust your government. I mean, Russia knows what it's like to have a population that doesn't trust the government.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to invest a ton of resources into controlling people just to, keep it under bay. And to put America in the same situation, it's not necessarily a bad plan
No.
to slow us down. Um, but that's the thing. So if they're coming out and, stirring all this Black Lives Matter stuff, they have some groups that are, creating racial tension. What were some of the names, Kevin?
Well, yeah. Some of these here was Black Matters USA. That was a Russian-run
Okay.
organization.
I feel like I could have got a better name for them than that.
Oh,
than Black
they got
Matters.
some terrible names here. So another one is Black Fist. Do not shoot. Now these are very specific.
Now, was Black Fist a porn site?
I don't know. It's not one I would ever visit. All right. So Black Fist is a group geared towards Black-owned fitness companies, gyms, things like that.
Oh, okay.
Now, the fucked up thing is they're not like promoting any sort of ideology. What they were doing with this one was just collecting names, phone numbers, email addresses, and videos of the people involved there. So what they were doing is collecting a list of Black people that are involved in fitness that they can advertise to a certain way. You know what I mean? They're creating categories of people and basically promoting bullshit to them independently. Whether it's Democrats or liberals, it's broken down a lot, or Republicans. It's broken down a lot more demographically than that. It's really broken down into all sorts of smaller groups that they can advertise to with their bullshit and their propaganda, their memes, their tweets, and all that sort of shit. They can gear it towards people specifically by what they're into or what they're not into and what's going to piss them off. So, I mean, it's kind of a smart way to gather information.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of get into like how they do it. So basically there's trolls, and that's this place in St. Petersburg where you have people who are just creating memes and trying to be creative. And I feel like they should maybe contact me, maybe reach out a little bit. I'll give you my information at the end of the podcast because I feel like I could help them out.
Yeah,
I
you could
can
do a
come up
lot
with
better
some
than
more clever
some of their
shit
shit is pretty
than a
stupid.
lot of the
Yeah.
stuff they've come up with. All right, so that's what the trolls do. All right, then you have the bots. Now the bots, what they do is that's just computers and it's basically software, right? And what the software does is it has all these accounts where it goes in and makes comments and it shares. And basically, each one has their own account, each bot, and so they share it and just basically grow and perpetuate this. There used to back in the day, back before social media, like before Facebook and that kind of shit. Rush Limbaugh, they used to go after him and try and take him down, and he always used to talk about it. One angry lady with 50 fax machines,
Right.
and she would send out the 50 faxes all from the same house or whatever, being
Uh,
like, Coke, you should stop advertising on the Rush Limbaugh show because that guy's the devil. And then, but they would all be the same fucking
right. The same number,
person
the same thing.
sending
Yeah.
a bunch of angry, and that's basically what Russian bots are.
Hmm.
It's so you got one guy coming up with some creative, and like I said, I feel like the creative is a little less than desirable,
Yeah.
but I feel like you could do better. And then it goes, but I I think that's where it, and then the bots, share and they comment. You know how on Facebook, if you get more comments, doesn't matter if they're good or bad, the more
Right.
interactions you get, the more it's going to be, shown in front of other people,
Right.
and obviously shares and things like that. And we all know. I mean, you people aren't idiots. You know how Facebook works. You
Right.
understand what's happening. Now, I think even though they're not super clever, they may not be, they end up creating a theme and they kind of put shit out there for everybody where it kind of changes the discussion.
Hmm.
And that's how it builds. I was watching a bunch of videos on why social media, is negatively impacting people or not negatively impacting. Is it good? Is it bad? Nobody knows. And, you know, nobody really knows. That's the bottom line. You think of, if you're as old as I am and you think of your childhood, and a lot of people, I mean, grew up without social media and a cell phone in their hand, right? A lot of you guys out there. Now, if you're under 25, 30, that's not necessarily the case. But, the rest of us, bottom line, you used to go out, you'd find your friends, you talk to people, you go hang out. And there's so much less of that. And I think, our culture and society has changed where parents don't even feel safe sending their kids off to randomly, disappear for 6 hours. Somehow society has decided that makes you a bad parent. But leaving your kid sitting at home staring at the tablet for 6, 7 hours, that's
That's
totally
okay. Right.
acceptable.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, but whatever. I'm not trying to say one is good or bad. It's just, why. I mean, I imagine getting out and having your own thoughts. A lot of the things I was seeing was saying that people don't even recognize like facial cues and tonality and things like that as much as we used to. The human interaction, it really, the nuance of it is actually going away. Where people don't, like, you always, everybody, when people like me and Kevin put our sarcastic shit all over the internet, people, we kind of are like, yeah, somebody could really take that the wrong way, and then we're like, fuck it and do it anyway.
Yeah.
I,
Cause
I was
fuck it.
watching a show yesterday where the guy's like, well, that fuck it button in my head. He was talking about using cocaine or whatever, but it's the same thing. Anytime I speak, I'm like, hit the fuck it button, and
Hmm.
just
Right.
just let it roll and we'll see where it ends up. Um, but that's kind of the thing is you lose that nuance and the tonality, and people, I think, take things the way it relates to them, like,
Right.
oh, I hate black people, so he must mean that he hates black people too, or whatever. Obviously, I don't hate black people. That's not my point. My point is people interpret it in relation to themselves, right?
Right.
So that's the the way it builds, and the same thing. Oh well, I think that all Democrats are evil. Blood sucking, Pelosi, whatever. Then then you can kind of interpret it through that lens. And also, like, I have coworkers who take everything from like a racial lens.
Right.
And anything you say, well, what does he really mean about race when he says that?
Right.
So it gets even worse though. So like I said, people see it through a certain lens, and that, that's an issue. But then, people say, well, kids used to sit in front of the TV all day and they'd watch commercials and you'd be influenced, and, product placement. And I know product placement's probably even more so, better, more strategically planned, and you notice it maybe even less, when they put it in shows and stuff. But I mean, I don't mean less like it happens less. I mean less obvious. Like, it's more, more. They probably crafted it a little bit more to where they influence us. But I think what's different now than it was 20 years ago is that we now it's kind of interactive, right? So when you click something, or you comment on something, or you love something, or you share something, all right, Facebook uses the algorithms where they try and say, all right, you know what, he likes this, and they craft it to shit that you react to.
Right.
Now, and that's a big difference with what was, going on before. Before, you're randomly seeing, hey, this new product's out there. Now it's, hey, you hate cops, or you whatever, so I'm going to show you tons of things that people who hate cops enjoy. Like, oh, look, there it is again. And it escalates, and it shapes a world around you where you're only seeing through a filter that's, painted in that negative light. And, hey, everybody who hates cops enjoys this. Or maybe you like cops, and then, you're only seeing good, happy cop stories. And that's, but the thing is, the world is just full of great people and bad people. And there's good stories and bad stories and whatever. It's the same thing with the NRA, right? Oh, all guns are used for bad things. And look, every gun that's out there, somehow falls into the wrong hands. I always watch these shows, and there'll be like the girlfriend who's like, don't buy a gun. They're so evil. If you buy a gun, it's going to be bad. And then the guy like locks the gun in his trunk to go into work or whatever. Somebody breaks in and steals the gun out of his trunk, and then uses it to kill the like kid on the tricycle outside. And you're like, oh,
guns are evil. She was right the whole time.
Right? She was right the whole time. So that's the thing. They're painting a picture. But you can just keep perpetuating what people want to see, right? And that's, I think, where it all falls apart. And that's why, I think people get that social media is so evil. And with the research that they've done, it seems you can get more of an emotional reaction by painting something negative than you can out of something positive.
Right.
It kind of burns into like positive. You can get. I think that the studies that I was looking at were showing that positive is better long term, but for immediate reaction, like you can build up more of a belief in whatever with something positive long term, but you can get quick reaction, clicks and comments and things like that. You can really kind of spread that hate if you, go with the negative. It's going to end up, going a lot more. It's a lot easier to get people on board with not liking Nancy Pelosi than it is to, get people to be positive about bunnies. I mean, I'm just saying, she's easy to hate, right?
Well, I mean, she might be a vampire. I feel like
there's that.
I feel like she's been like 100 years old for like the past 100 years. She doesn't get any older. She's old, but she doesn't get any older. She just keeps going.
Right.
I hear
Right.
that she
Well,
now. I did hear on the internet
yeah.
that she bathes in the blood of virgins, but I'm not.
Mm.
I don't have any evidence of that. It's just something I heard on the internet from some sort of bot.
Yeah, that's it. It was your friend Vlad that shared it with you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Vlad posted it. Yeah. Yeah, I know about that one. But that's the thing. I mean, and I feel like our news has even gone that way, like Hollywood, CNN, the White House, all the different things that are out there putting out, information. It seems like they want to show us that sensationalism, whatever, the dramatic emotion, and want to, catch the hey, this will sell kind of thing. Um, and I think, honestly, I hate to say it, I think that was CNN's downfall. I mean, I know you're like, well, CNN still exists, and yes, they do.
Yeah.
But it used to be that you couldn't go anywhere without CNN being on, and it was
Right.
it was like a staple, right? And people, I think they just get tired of the negative stories over and over. Like it's good, like it's a story it'll get you to turn on when it's dramatic and emotional,
Right.
but then when that's all you got is the traumatic, emotional, reactionary shit, people start to see through it over time.
Right.
And they don't feel like their day is better when they're watching it. Like, oh, I got something out of that, and I feel like I'm informed and whatever. I mean, we like excitement and we talk about some dramatic things and, somebody doing something stupid on this podcast. We're in the entertainment business to some extent,
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think even the crap that we post on social media, you guys would be amazed. But like, so we have the prepping badass page on Facebook, and I think the heading says like survival prepping, and I'll get comments from people. You just have a bunch of memes about politics and whatever, and you don't have real content on survival and prepping. And I got to tell you, when I post stuff like a video of some guy building a shelter or doing something super creative, or hey, here's a great way to filter water, hey,
Mm-hmm.
here's a great way to build a better fire, look at this new thing that really works and whatever. And I'm not talking about trying to sell you a product. I'm talking about free information where I'm like, hey, this guy's really got his shit together and can show you, or improve your shooting or whatever 30% by doing something really simple trick where you don't have to buy anything, you just have to do this thing. Like dude, there was a great video. I know I'm all over the place here, but there was a great video where the guy's like, look, here's how your eyes work, and you follow like dots, so when you're aiming with a gun, people kind of see the target moving as your body's kind of jittering as
Mm-hmm.
you're sitting there breathing and whatever, and they're like, people kind of like try and catch it at the half second while it's lined up,
Mm-hmm.
like they're like, oh, I'm watching the dot and it's in front of the target now, pull the trigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
People will get like that, and that's like kind of a trick of your eye. And there
Right.
was a video like explaining that, and like stand in front of the mirror and watch, and it broke down how your eye, like it's actually not there when you're pulling the trigger,
Right.
like, and people end up jerking because of it and different things like that. And it really went into detail explaining that and how to correct that issue. To me, super useful. And I'm like, oh, this is the greatest thing. Let me share that on the
How many
thing. And
people
it'll get
were into that one?
like two watches and maybe one like. And you're
Uh,
like, oh. But if I post some stupid ass shit about, hey, Pelosi looks stupid here. Look at her, whatever. Look, you can see freaking, I don't know, you can see her vampire teeth in this
right.
angle. Then I'm going to get 2,000 likes and all these comments and like 40 shares.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, oh, well,
Yeah.
that's how I grow my audience.
Yeah. And that's how the
But
Russians
it's
do
one of
it.
those
You know?
right. And that's one of those self-fulfilling kind of things, right? Hey, I'm pretty sure Pelosi's a vampire. Look at her freaking sucking the necks of children or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And you'd be like, oh, yep. Or, if I post a meme of freaking Biden sniffing some little girl's hair, they'll be like, oh, yep. But if I post something, really relevant to survival and prepping, people are like, yeah, whatever, maybe not my thing. And I'm not saying, it's human nature, right? I'm not trying to bash you guys for, oh, you're not all survival all the time. I don't know if you should be. No, that's not my point at all. My point is we can get manipulated and pushed in different directions, and it does affect how we think and what we do. So just be aware of what you're doing and what you choose and why you're choosing. I guess the real thing that it comes down to is we all need to kind of, understand, like, I think people need to decide what your values are. Kind of come up with your core beliefs and, like, know your principles. And that way you can kind of see if you're being influenced and kind of reevaluate yourself. Even if you write down some of your thoughts, and have like a journal of kind of your beliefs, you can kind of see how much you've changed. You think about how much people have changed with their stance on, your tolerance of cross dressers or, homosexuality, or, you think of like gay marriage, right? Remember, it wasn't that long ago when Obama and Hillary, at the beginning of Obama's uh, campaign, he was anti-gay marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and and the whole world was on board with that. And I don't mean everybody was anti-gay marriage. That's not my point. I'm saying the majority in the culture had accepted that as a thing. I know the media now is doing their damnedest to paint the picture as, there's 6 different genders or 20 or 30 different genders, that kind of shit. But like, it still seems when they actually poll people in private that people believe there's only 2 genders, but they're trying to reshape that, and we're turning into something different. And I'm not saying what's good and bad. I mean, oh, well, people used to really divide each other by race, and now we don't as much, and that's better. Well, guess what? That is better.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we try and tear each other apart a lot now too. So who knows? But the point is, there are good changes that come out of stuff. And I'm not saying, what we need to do. And we don't need to hate people because they're different than us. I'm saying you need to be aware of what you believe and why you believe it. You need to make your choices. Now, if somebody makes a compelling argument and it's not just a bullshit meme,
Mm-hmm.
then I would say, take it into account, and maybe you reevaluate yourself. Maybe you say, hey, I've been kind of, narrow-minded and stupid about this shit. But when everything's very reactionary, where, oh, you voted for Trump, I absolutely have to hate you. You're no longer my mother, and I don't care about you anymore. And the same thing. Well, you voted for a Democrat, and, you're so stupid, I can't even believe. But hey, we can all agree Mitch McConnell sucks and Nancy Pelosi sucks.
Yep. Nobody's going to argue
I
that.
don't think, I don't think we have to, but that's the point. We don't need to, just hate each other. To be honest, I can see arguments for why somebody would get vaccinated, and I can see strong arguments with why somebody would not get vaccinated. And both, I think, can be very legitimate. And I understand. And also, you got to keep in mind, maybe somebody hasn't done the amount of research that you've done. But even with a reasonable level of research, I can see how you can make an argument either way. And that's the point. You don't need to just hate somebody and, hey, you're ridiculous and I can't even talk to you. You have no comprehension or whatever. But I do find when people just have the talking points, I do kind of lose interest and don't want to talk to them. And I'll end up like, yeah, I'm going to move on, dude.
Yeah.
Because you've given this idea no thought and, and whatever. And the thing is, it's fine that you don't worry about vaccines. I'm just going to live my life and do my thing. That's fine with me. My point is, don't make the argument and decide you're going to hate me without doing any research,
Right.
Do your research, figure out where you stand and what you believe, and stick to it. Own it. Be a man. So anyway, if you'd enjoyed this discussion, you appreciate listening to us. We did get some new sponsors on Patreon again, and maybe you guys could support us at patreon.com. You could, have concerns, comments. You could email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. A lot of great things out there that, you can do to get in touch with us. Facebook, whatever, social media. I know you guys like to get on there. We'd, you see what I did there, right? But anyway, all right. So with that, stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
The Survival and Basic Badass podcast is a proud member of the Self Defense Radio Network.